The change that we're seeking is justice. The change that we want is the best for all human beings. When we can be in authentic communication with one another, that's where the magic happens. I think my father was probably the first black person my mother ever talked to, you know. And she actually used him as a foil. Somebody was bothering her, some man was annoying her, and she asked my dad, would you please pretend like we're together? And then she couldn't get rid of him. So they got married. When my parents married, they kept my mother's father, my grandfather, ignorant of the fact that they had married because he had a bad heart and they thought it would kill him. And the rest of the family pretty much disowned my mom for marrying my dad until my grandfather died. And then every Tuesday we would go to Brooklyn to see my grandmother. She was a wonderful seamstress. She would make beautiful clothes for my doll, but she never, ever touched me. Never hugged me, never kissed me, never welcomed me as part of her family. And so I know both the power of a mother's love, because my mother loved me so deeply, and the power and the cost of having that love suppressed. The divine love, in many ways, drives the work that I do, informs the work that I do, comes from my understanding the absence of that at a very deep level. But I was very much a part of the black community, and all the schools I went to were black. My dentist was black. You know, everybody in my neighborhood was black. And so I grew up in a time when this question of what it means to be biracial, I mean, that didn't happen. It was, if you had a drop of black blood, you were considered black, and in some places in the country that was the law. And so I grew up as a black girl. And so I got involved in a lot of different ways to try to make things better, involved in different movements. I lived in a neighborhood where I often got to hear Malcolm X speak. And the thing that I loved about Malcolm was you could feel love radiating from him. So between Malcolm and Martin Luther King and women and men who did a lot in order to promote social justice, I had that fire inside of me because I understood, and I still understand, what happens when you have to work your way up the down escalator. The greatest joy that I have is when people are coming together in community of all different shapes, sizes, colors, persuasions, and they're talking about authentically things that are really scary to talk about. So I think in any way that women come together, mothers come together, whether it's another person or two other families, whether it's a small group, whether it's a school, whatever places where we can form community, and we're willing to speak truth to one another and to be vulnerable with one another, that's where my hope lies. I think that there's a lot that we can do as mothers to prepare our children to see inhabitants of the world as equal. By that I mean entitled to a life that is filled with, you know, a sense of worth, a sense of connection, a sense of selflessness when it comes to doing for others. And that requires that we as mothers tell the truth to our children, that we don't sugarcoat things. Children are quite capable of being spoken to in very real terms. I think we model for our children. They become like who we are in many ways. And so we have to model tenacity, we have to model telling the truth, we have to model our own courage, our willing to face into those places where we don't have all the answers. We have to model being open to getting new information and learning. We have to model what it means to be in good company with one another. And I think that no mother can do it alone. I think that mothers need to come together with other mothers and to learn from each other and to have their children play together and to practice being the best we can be. It takes a certain amount of consciousness and desire to do that.